Hi, I'm Steve Wilkos, and watch me on the Hollywood Raw podcast. These guys ask me questions nobody has asked me before.
Hey guys, welcome to the Hollywood Raw YouTube page. Make sure you drop a comment, like, subscribe.
Do all the fun things.
Follow
everything. We're here to entertain you guys.
What are you waiting for? Hurry up, let's go.
Enjoy.
What's up? Welcome to the Hollywood Raw podcast. We got a fun one today. We got Steve Wilkos on the show. You might have first saw him on the Jerry Springer show. Now he's got his own show. That's 15 seasons now. So he's doing very huge show.
Crushing it so far. I mean, that's the thing. It's like he's been on air for so long, but I was looking over some of his number. I mean, the show's still getting like 1 million people a day to tune in and watch his show. And then his social numbers are through the roof. So we'll get into all of that with him. I mean, just really success, like just his storyline going from being like the security guard. Well, I'm sorry, a police officer to being a security guard on the Jerry Springer show to having your own show. Like, I mean, what a wild story he's had. I mean, but if this is the first time you're tuning into the Hollywood Raw podcast, you know, we're not your typical interview show. We dive deep into these celebrities, not asking the normal questions that everyone asks along the way during a junket or whatever. We like to get into their lives, how they got to where they're at. We've had some amazing guests on this podcast over the years, including Mark Cuban and Tony Robbins and Farrah Abraham. I mean, our list is wild.
Larsa Pippen. I mean, it's a pretty wide range of celebrities, but we look for people that are interesting, that are fun, that also get it and don't bullshit, you know. Yeah. And I think Steve is one of those people. Dax, you see my sweatshirt, by the way? See this sweatshirt I'm wearing?
Oh, look at that.
You see what this is? Do you know what brand this is?
Nope.
Can you say it?
Municipal.
Yes. Okay. So this is Mark Wahlberg's brand. I did this video that's on our TikTok, on the Hollywood Raw TikTok and the Hollywood Raw social media, where I interviewed Mark Wahlberg. And if you guys are first listening, I do celebrity interviews. I'm a journalist. I run around the streets of New York City doing these street interviews. Mark Wahlberg was in New York, and I got him. And I go, Mark, first thing, I got to kiss his ass a little bit. I go, dude, Mark, I love Municipal. That's your clothing brand. Even though I didn't have any of his clothing. I'm not going to lie. I didn't have it, but I like it.
Listen, you're a professional ass kisser because it works. You get great interviews. I
got to hit on him a little bit. So I say first, man, I love Municipal. And then I start asking him about some bullshit. Anyway, not bullshit, but I asked him about his new movie and we start to talk about auditioning. But the video did insanely well on TikTok and social media. And I got reached out by the Municipal social media account. And they're like, hey, man, love that video that you did with Mark. Dude, really appreciative of you mentioning it. They sent me some swag, dude.
No, that's awesome.
So, dude, I was like, dude, they're my, thanks. Shout out to Municipal, man.
So
that was really.
You go around and tell everyone, like, Mark Wahlberg sent me a shirt?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he intern did, but I was very appreciative of the brand for like sending me some swag. I guess that's how these social media people do it. I'm like, wow, this is what you got to do. So shout out to Oshkosh Bagosh if you got anything.
Shout out to everyone, anyone who wants to throw us clothing, we will catch it.
Yes, but no, this was very cool. But like the video did like over 1 million views on TikTok, and they were very appreciative and sent me a nice handwritten note, and said that was really cool. You just to mention it, Municipal to add.
You're just trying to get more free clothing from this. We're gonna move on. Or you're just unless you guys want to send me, then I will also mention it on. All right, let's get to this. We got Steve waiting for us. We got a review I want to read real fast as a thank you to someone who took the time to write us a review on iTunes. It's from Linda Yoga Girl. Oh, this is not it. I've already read this one. Hold on. Dang it. I had one ready to go and now I've lost it. Hold on. Oh. Hold on, guys. Don't go anywhere. I am going to find this.
Yeah, let's talk more about Municipal.
I literally had it all ready to go, Adam. How did I mess this up? I'm such a loser. God, I messed everything up. All right. It's from here. Here we go. From KBS 7601, it says, fantastic interviewers, so positive and lighthearted, ask the questions we want to hear in a respectful way. Great podcast. Thank you, KBS. We appreciate that you took the time to go and just leave that review. It really means the world for us, and it's been helping us climb up the iTunes charts like crazy. Sure. Everyone who's spent the time and left us a review. So really appreciate it, but let's get into it. Our guest today is a former police officer, former security guard for the Jerry Springer Show that turned him into a crazy, wild, successful TV host going on 15 seasons. Steve Wilkos, welcome.
So, Steve, thank you for coming on the Hollywood Raw podcast. You had one of the most insane careers. Like, did you ever think that you'd be in the place that you're at now when you started your place, your career in criminal justice, really?
I still don't believe it. I've been in TV since 1994. And every day I wake up or if I catch my show flipping through the channel, I'm like, how in the world did this happen? Even after all these years, because my father was a paratrooper in Korea and became a Chicago policeman. And I was going to be exactly like my dad. I went into the Marines right after high school, became a policeman. I was going to do the job for 30 years, get my pension. And so one day taking a security job for one day turned into a whole different career, which, when you think about it, it really is insane.
I love it. Because I think back and, we obviously all met you on the Jerry Springer Show, but at what point did you become a personality on the show? Like, you weren't just security there. They realized that, oh, this guy has got a great personality. We want to start highlighting him.
Part of the show, yeah.
Well, I think where it really took a big turn was when they asked me to shave my head, and that was in 1997, and we were doing, and I didn't have like a full head of hair or anything like that. When I came out of the Marine, I kept my hair short, and I was balding, but I had hair, and so we were taping shows down in spring break. We called them Springer Break. It was Daytona, Florida. And the executive producer at the time said, why don't you shave your head? He goes, I'm going to make you a star. I mean, that's exactly what he said. And so we went to a barbershop and they clipped it down as short as they could. Then I went to my hotel room and I took a blade and I shaved the rest of the way. And I remember, like, the first time I did it, I looked like I ran through a thorn bush because I was bleeding all over the place. And but this was 1997, so that was before really everybody had email, had the internet, and everything. So that's when we were still getting fan mail, like actual letters in the mail. And I don't know if you ever saw that movie Miracle on 34th Street, where they bring the bags of letters in for Santa Claus and, just bags and bags. Well, that's what kind of happened. Like, all of a sudden, I went from having no fan mail to like tons and tons of fan mail. And it was really.
From shaving your head, though?
Yeah, because when I shaved my head, and it was a good call, because then I really stood out, like when I was on stage and stuff like that. And it was a turning point, that's for sure.
I love the Springer Breaks, by the way. You mentioned that. I forgot about that. That to me was just like MTV Spring Break was just so iconic, so ideal. I wish they brought it back. I mean, we
used to do those too.
Yeah, those were great. Yeah. What were the kind of cases or storylines in the Springer Breaks during that time? Do you remember?
Well, when you look back at the shows that we did, we're so politically incorrect. There's no way you'd be able to pull off those shows nowadays, because I remember we did a show, and I'm only saying this because this was the titles we used, okay? One was like, trannies something, right? And we had all these transsexuals at spring break, and they were in bikinis and stuff, and nobody knew they were really, guys, or, I don't even know. But like back then, it was a totally different world. So I'm not trying to be politically correct now. So those were kind of like the storylines. And but then there was one that we did with Springer Break with MTV. It was actually MTV's Springer Break. And we were saying, what would you do for, $100 or whatever it was? And we were asking people to come on stage, and they would do like crazy stuff, and Jerry would, ask them to do it. Well, one was, would you jump rope naked for $100 or whatever it was, $500? As one guy said, I'll do it. He comes up and he pulls his shorts down, and all he saw was hair. I mean, nothing else. And me and Jerry looked at each other like, what the hell? And I go, that dude just ruined his life for $100. You know?
I think his life was already ruined at that point, bud.
Yeah.
No, I would say though, like obviously the craziness for someone to stand out after 15 seasons. Well, I guess I'm going to say 15 seasons of your show plus all the time that you spent on the Jerry show. That's pretty impressive to stand out between all the crazy storylines there. But obviously the fighting is really what, like, I think the Jerry show was known
I mean, come
for.
on, that's what propelled it to its #1 status, where we were taking on Oprah for over a year. The fighting was crazy, and the truth of it is, I was there before the fighting, and it did grow organically. Nobody planned that, and it's just like monkey see, monkey do, right? Like, I think some guests saw it happen, and they kind of thought, well, that's allowed, right? And people just started swinging, and I'll say this.
And then you came in and you became the massive part of the show because you were the one always seeing how far they can go before you needed to step in. But did you ever get hurt during one of those altercations where they kind of got you?
Well, nobody really hurt me intentionally. I mean, I got hurt many times on the stage. That's why people say, oh, it was fake. I'm like, I had 2 back surgeries, a concussion. But the worst one was I tore my groin, and it was 2 girls fighting, and they're laying on the ground, they're just holding each other's hair, and I bent down, and my groin just snapped, and I thought somebody shot me. I really did. Like, I was like, oh my God, somebody just shot me from the audience, and I collapsed on stage, but I was pretty close to the back door to the stage, and I crawled off. And the pain was so intense, they had to call an ambulance for me. And, it was just, I was black and blue everywhere down there. That's the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life.
And was it just a bad position? How did you snap?
Yeah, it was kind of awkward. And then, even like one time, this really heavy woman was running past me, and I grabbed her. And as she was running by, she was like 300 pounds. I go, man, I came off stage. I felt something like pop in my back. And sure enough, I had a blown disc in my back, and I ended up going to have 2 brutal surgeries because of it. So, yeah, there was times that, you got injured. You took your lumps on there.
Dang.
When you started, obviously working at Springer, you still had a full-time job as an active police officer. How was your boss, the police department? Were they cool with you kind of working the side job on TV and kind of working for Springer?
So that's a really good question, which, by the way, nobody ever asked me that. So my immediate supervisor, who was my watch commander, he loved the show. He was very lenient with me because, sometimes I'd be late from taping and I'd get late to work. He was very cool with me and, let me kind of fudge things around. And then my district commander, a guy named Commander Acosta, he was a huge fan of the show too. So they were down with me doing it. The problem was there was people that, like, I had sergeants or other policemen that, when you're a cop and you're making more than the mayor of Chicago, it kind of rubs people the wrong way sometimes, like, or people are jealous. And, I'm pulling into the station with a brand new Mercedes convertible. Like, you kind of draw a lot of attention to yourself. And I probably, if I go back in time, I would correct that mistake. But so there was some sergeants that tried to make life a little harder for me because I was getting a little special treatment from my commander, my watch commander. Not blatant, but just kind of helped me out a little bit. And there was people that resented it. So on one hand, I had the 2 biggest bosses kind of taking care of me, but then there was people, a little lower, and they didn't like that, and they tried to make life difficult for me.
I could see that easily. There's a lot of jealousy when someone starts taking off in their career. When did you realize, like, you had finally made it though? Like, what was that moment for you? Where, like, damn, dude, like, this has all come together for me?
When they gave me a TV contract. I mean, like I said, I went there for one day, and I was, I think the pay was like $35 an hour. which was a lot of money. It was more than what I was making as a policeman. And so then when the show just, took off, and I guess because I was on stage so much and I was talking, that they had to give me a standard TV deal. And the first contract was more than double than what I was making as a policeman. And you got to remember, this was a part-time job. I think I worked 2 to 3 days a week. And so I really was amazed. I was like, oh my God, to me, it was like $1 million, And I never had a new car, and I bought a new car. So it was, that's when I really felt like, oh my God, I'm as good as gold there.
So was your job, did it entail, like, as a security guy, are you there greeting people at the door when they first arrive to the studio, like the audience, or were you just there for like TV taping just to make sure maybe the two parties didn't interact each other, or was your job just to be there in the room when they shoot the show and make sure if they fight, you're the first person there to break it up?
So that was the good part about me being a director of security. So it was my gig, and I hired other guys. So I had other guys downstairs when the audience came. Everybody went through a metal detector. My guys would screen everybody. When they came to the studio, we would search bags and everything. Because one time we found one guest brought a gun. He wasn't going to do anything. He wasn't crazy, but we're like, you can't have a gun in Chicago. What the hell did you bring a gun to the show for? So things like that. So we did screen everybody. And my guys would screen the guests right before they went on stage. And they did the audience. Me, I basically showed up, did the show. But then when it came to Jerry, I was Jerry's personal bodyguard. So I was always with Jerry. I traveled with Jerry. Obviously I made it very good for myself, and the other guys did all the grunt work.
What was it like when you guys would go out, like you and Jerry be out in public? Because I got to imagine the two of you walking around or grabbing lunch would cause quite a frenzy.
Especially at that time, yeah.
Yeah, it was, no talk show host or anybody on talk show will ever experience what we experienced. I mean, being with Jerry during the late 90s was like being with Elvis Presley. I mean, the guy was the biggest star in the world. I remember we were doing publicity in London and Amsterdam. And I remember we would be eating somewhere, and the restaurant would have to close its doors because people would just be flying in and mobbing the restaurant. And so they would lock the doors. And I remember one time we were in Amsterdam where we got into the limo, and they surrounded the limo and they were rocking it and going crazy. And I'm just like, it was insane. I mean, when we were in Chicago, it was kind of good because I knew everybody in Chicago, and I knew all the security at all the clubs and restaurants and stuff. So when we went out, there was always a little bit of a barrier. But when we went to other cities, we didn't know anybody. And like, sometimes the security might not be up to what we had in Chicago. And not that I was ever scared, but like, perfect example, we were in New Orleans, and Jerry was the host of the Indemnian Parade. And after we did the parade, Jerry's like, let's walk down Bourbon Street. And I said, no, man, this is not a good idea. And he's like, no, let's do it. And we got mobbed. I mean, it was we were getting crushed weight-wise, but people just pressed up against us. And so thank God there's people that they were right on Bourbon Street. They had a loft, those balconies up, and they brought us up. They let us escape. And so, yeah, it was crazy because, we would get mobbed. And it got to the point where when my popularity took off the show, I was useless as Jerry's bodyguard because I couldn't watch his back because I was trying to watch mine. And so then after a few years, then I didn't travel with Jerry anymore. I sent other guys because I became too big of a distraction.
And Dax, let me tell you, I don't know if you had any encounters with Jerry. Jerry's like one of the nicest guys. Like, he's such a good guy, and he gets, and I don't say this weird, he gets the joke. He understands the ridiculousness of his show. So all my encounters with Jerry has been like such a cool guy, so chill, so funny, so intelligent, and his background to where he started to him getting the show is he understands. He's the first one to beat you to the punchline. He knows how crazy it is. Like, it was wild at the time. I remember seeing, I think it was like and I could be wrong, and Steve, you would know this better. There was like infomercials going of like the unedited versions of like almost a Girls Gone Wild style, but of Jerry Springer's show.
Yeah.
Like that was like to see like the fights or stuff that wasn't edited. I mean, that was like a huge. I mean, I'm sure Jerry made a lot of money off that because that was people wanted to see everything. I mean, it was.
Unfortunately, he took a bad deal on that first one because they offered him either a percentage of the sales or a flat fee. And he took the flat fee, and that first tape ended up selling like $500 million. It was the biggest grossing videotape of all time.
Wow.
Yeah. So, the uncensored tape, like, it's funny. Again, this is, I give my head off to you because you're asking questions that nobody else asks. When me and my wife, who, she was the executive producer at Springer for years, we watched the second uncensored tape, and I was stunned. I go, man, this show is so violent. And I did it. I was breaking up those fights. And when I watched it on tape, because I never watched the show back then, but I watched the videotapes and I go, Jesus, I can't believe how violent this is.
That's so funny. No, I'm just thinking back, all the crazy moments are going through my head. But Adam, to answer your question, yes, I've met Jerry once. I have this phenomenal photo where it looks like he's hitting me with a chair. He came in to guest host at TMZ once, and I was like, okay, I need a really good photo with you. So it's like he's whacking me with a chair. It's really funny, but wonderful person, I have to admit.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and when you tell that story, it doesn't surprise me at all because Jerry's very gracious. I mean, we'd be eating dinner, and, you'd have a mouthful of food and people like, can I get an autograph? And I wanted to say, come on, we're eating. But Jerry would stop and he would sign an autograph. The guy never said no, never.
That's awesome. And I'm thinking back to when the show was on, you would guest host from time to time. What was that experience like for you? Would you do a bunch of prep, or, hey, I've been watching it, I kind of get how to do the guest hosting at this point?
I don't think there was ever 1 second of prep for anybody that ever appeared on that show between me, Jerry, anybody. So what happened with me was we would just do little segments called Steve to the Rescue, where I went out and I helped somebody in some kind of situation. But when I started hosting the show, that was because Jerry was on Dancing with the Stars, and they couldn't shut down the production of the show. So they came to me and said, you're going to host. And I was scared to death because even though I had been on the show, at this point, I was on the show for like 11 years. And, being the second banana and not having the responsibility of hosting the show was always so easy for me. But then when they came to me and said, you're going to host, I was really nervous, but I said, hell, man, just go out there and ask stupid questions like Jerry does. It's not rocket science. So, the shows were they rated very well when they aired. And that's what really launched me in getting my own show, because they thought Jerry would be the first one voted off Dancing with the Stars, and that he'd be, back in 1 week and that'd be over. Well, he ended up being on that show for like 6 or 7 weeks. And I ended up hosting like 30 or 40 shows. And they rated really well. And that's what really launched me into getting my own show.
Wow. What was Jerry's response after he got to watch like the first show that you hosted? Did he?
I don't think he ever saw any show I ever hosted. Probably not the 15 years of my show. He just cashes the check for my show.
That's funny.
So you were there from 94 to 2007, correct?
Yep.
So during that time, the show is super outrageous. And then there is a big storylines. People are saying, is the show fake? Is it rigged? Is it real? Are these people actors? How would you, during that time, was there any people that came on just wanted to make money or just have fun with it? Or like was there?
We didn't pay anybody. So, I mean, guests don't get paid on my show. They don't get paid, being on a Springer show. Now, like if you were missing a day of work and you worked, they might reimburse you for lost wages or something like that. But that was it. Nobody got a fee for appearing on a show. So, the people like scam us, make up a story. You know, I remember there was some comedy troupe from Canada that, oh, we faked it. Okay, so what? You fooled us. Big deal. Like, we're a talk show. You know, this is not national security here. You know what I mean? Like so people lied and faked their way on. Who cares? You made
for entertaining television.
Yeah, and you know, there was so many times. So like every show has like a basic script. Okay, you know, you're going to meet Joe Blow and Susie Q. You know, but then with the Springer Show, it really was there. You just went off script so much. It was unbelievable. If the story was terrible, we just would start fooling around, man. We didn't even follow the story. Like, we just start pulling each other's pants down and stuff. It was like being in high school. And so that's what I love. Like, to me, like, I do my show and it's a serious show sometimes. And I enjoyed doing my show, but there was no funner time in my life than doing the Jerry Springer Show. I couldn't wait to get there. It was so much fun. I had all my friends working for me. We'd be hanging out. Even my guys were stars at one time. Like, and they were, you know, low on the totem pole, and everybody knew who they were. So it just was a really interesting time in TV history where, you know, you just went to work, you never knew what was going to happen, and sometimes somebody said something, you just deviated from that, or like, oh, what happened, and we would just go down that road. So it was just insane, and it was fun. Well, and people took it too seriously. We're like, you know, people like, how can you work on that garbage? And I'm like, well, because it pays me really well, and I love doing it. So, you know, and you know, people are like, you know, it's fun. Like, everybody looked down their nose at our guests on the show, and I'm like, are you really better than them? Like, really, examine yourself. Like, you never cheated on anybody. Nobody ever cheated on you. You never raised your voice at somebody. You never been in a fight in your life, or, you know, something like that. So I'm like, okay, so some of their stuff is playing out on stage, but if I really dug into you, I'm sure I could find something.
No, the show is extremely, like, it's entertainment, and that's the way I've always looked at, you know, Jerry's show is just it entertains you when you needed that entertainment. Yeah, it's so crazy. You know, you've had a crazy successful show. You're on season 15. So what do you think it is that makes a successful talk show this day and age? Because it's not easy anymore with TV not being you know, just, I guess, normal networks not being the focal. You've got all these streamers. How do you keep a successful talk show this day and age?
Well, one, I think when you have let's put it this way. People say to me all the time, like, I could do your job. And I said, yeah, anybody could do my job, right? Like, give somebody some cue cards, go on stage and ask some questions. I said, the only difference is, will anybody watch, right? Like, yeah, anybody could do my job. If you can read, you can do my job. But will anybody watch you doing that job? That's the big difference. And there's a couple things with me. I think, one, I had the very good fortune of having 1 million eyeballs on me every day on the Springer Show. So people got to know me, become fans of mine. And then when I got my own show, they kind of followed over. So I was very fortunate in that regard. But the show that we do is different than every other talk show on TV, where 90% of talk shows during the day are celebrity driven, celebrity focused. And so they're all competing, you know, the pie is only this big. And, you know, there's a slice like this that nobody else wants but me. And I take it. And I'm not competing against anybody. There's no other shows that cover the stories that we do or give lie detector tests or anything like that.
And you're doing a lot of true crime these days too, right?
Like, a lot of true crime. And you listen, we go where the ratings are, right? So like when we would do stories based on true crime, high profile crime stories, people that were involved in these type of things, the ratings rated really well. And then we got a lot of feedback on social media and everything like that we just kind of shifted. And that's the biggest focus of our show right now. So like I said, true crime is, you know, it's big on everything. And when you look on Netflix or Hulu or everything else, that's where, you know, that's the biggest growth of anything. So we just went in that direction. Like I said, and during the daytime, we're not competing against anybody except ourselves.
Yeah, no, you actually made a really good point. You see, there's a lot of daytime talk shows that come out. A lot of them don't last a year. I mean, I'm not
with big names, really big names.
I'm not going to say any more names, Bethany Frankel. But it's interesting.
Was she really a celebrity though? She's like a celebrity, like I'm a celebrity. Not really.
Yeah, I mean,
we could go on and on. I mean, Seacrest had a talk show. I mean, so many really successful. Yeah,
then they tried to bring Arsenio Hall back and Ricky Lake and first of all, I remember it was funny. I did a company conference, bodybuilding.com, and they flew me and Ricky Lake out there, and I got to meet Ricky, and she was really, really nice person. But I had an interesting conversation with her where, her show was very successful in the 90s. And, we were talking about money and, pay and all this. And she walked away from a show that she could have kept doing. And she was making, back in the 90s, if you had a talk show, you were making gobs and gobs of money. And, I think she thought that she was just going to walk back in and her audience was going to follow her back to her new show. But when you're out of mind, you're not on TV, your fans are going to move on. They're going to grow. They're going to get married, have kids. So your fans have moved on to something else or different parts of their life. And I think that was kind of a shock to her that, people just didn't flock back to her new show. Well, TV's totally different than it was 20, 30 years ago. Now you have a million different entertainment options. And so you got to be careful. Like I was scared to jump off the Springer show, right? Don't jump off a speeding train. Sure. And I was like, why do I want my own show when I'm on a show that really has legs? And it did. It lasted, I think, 13 or 11, 12 more years after I left. So I was kind of worried, like, man, what if my show fails? Are they going to let me go back to Springer? Because I was on a hit show. I didn't need my own show, but it worked out. But yeah, so it's a lot of big names. Katie Couric, Vieira. Yeah. I mean, the list is probably as long as my two arms put together of failed talk shows in the last 10 years.
Yeah, but you gave me a good perspective. They all kind of do the same thing. I'm surprised Kelly Clarkson's actually doing well. I know Kelly Clarkson's doing well. Drew Barrymore is doing well. But then why do the other people?
Kelly Clarkson's doing well. I mean, when I'm beating you, then you're in trouble, right? Because, that show, like Drew Barrymore, I'm not criticizing her, but she probably makes 3 times what I make. That show costs a fortune, and it does less ratings than I do. So Kelly Clarkson does really well, and I watched her. I don't watch daytime talk show, but I'll check out every show that comes out just to kind of get a feel of it. And I think that with Kelly Clarkson she's got really a good appeal. I think people really feel connected to her. She's very genuine. And not to say anything bad about Drew Barrymore. I met her once. She was very nice. But that show is very expensive to produce. It doesn't get the ratings. And I think everything's so failing at a great rate when it comes out now. They're just they're giving shows much more time than they would back when I launched. If I would have had the ratings that these shows have had when they come out, I would have not made past 13 weeks. But now, because they have so much money invested, they really give you a lot more rope, because to cancel it now, you put all this money to the show and it's not making it.
We've talked about all these shows that didn't make it and a couple that have, but who do you admire besides Jerry as a daytime talk show host? Who do you look at and you're like,
I mean, she's not on right now, but I loved Wendy Williams. I really, I got it. I thought here, urban Black woman, very, attractive and outspoken. And I thought, TV's littered with middle-aged white men. And I thought that was a really good call to give somebody like her a show. And she's very successful. And I've got to know Wendy, and I know she's got some issues with her health right now, and hopefully she gets back on TV. I know Sherry Shepherd replaced her with that show, but I really admired Wendy. I loved what she did with her show, and yeah, so I really look towards her.
Like, now that you're in the game, you know how TV works, show business, what you've met with the executives, what they want or how they think. Shows like you mentioned Drew Barrymore, from my opinion, yes, the show costs a lot of money, but they get huge stars. So they're willing to take a loss because the stars she gets, because it becomes sort of like a commercial for the network. Is that how some of these shows work?
I'm sure, like, I can't speak to that because obviously we get no celebrities. But yeah, it might be like a loss leader, right? The grocery store, you put something up front and brings people in, but you're making money on something else.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I haven't seen the show since it launched, but I know she's friends with every big A-list name in Hollywood, and I know she gets big stars on there. So, but I do know nobody in today wants to lose money because the money is not there like it was 20 years ago. So even though you might bring this and it's a vehicle, I mean, I don't know how that works, but I know with us, if you're not making money, you're gone.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys have done an amazing job because it's not just, monetizing the television show, which has been insanely successful. It's also the socials, it's the YouTube and everything like that. How much of a focus is that for you? Like, obviously the industry's changed where, yes, you had to put so many hours into the TV show and the main focus is TV show, but how many hours are you personally, not just behind the scenes people, are you kind of like, okay, guys, now we got to work on doing stuff for the social?
Well, so digital now is a huge part of TV, right? Like, I didn't even understand it because I don't have social media. I've never been on Facebook. I had Instagram. I deleted it because I thought it was just a big time suck. So I didn't understand it, but I do understand younger people. My kids never turn a TV on, never. They're on their phones and they're looking at, or their little laptop or whatever, and they're looking at whatever they're watching is all content on, Instagram or whatever. So I didn't understand it, but my wife would say, okay, we're going to do this at home. We're going to tape you, eating 10 different slices of pizza, or, you're going to make Thanksgiving a dish. And so we started doing it. And at first I hated it, right? Like, I'm like, when I'm at home, I don't want to be working. But she's like, this is a big thing, and we need to monetize it, and it's good for the show, and it brings in a different revenue stream. Well, this past February, I got a digital check, and I said, hey, let's do digital every day. I'm down, man. Let's go social media,
I was going to say, like, you're being modest here, but I saw some of these numbers that you guys were rolling in, like 147 million views on Facebook year to date. Like, that blows my mind. And then I saw 2.6 million on YouTube. I mean, your numbers are just out of control. You're so successful on digital. Big round of applause for you. So I can understand why those checks are looking pretty fresh coming in from digital.
Yeah. So, that's a whole new revenue stream for us. And so, like, when they're asking you to do something and you're not getting any more money, like anybody, you're like, what the hell? But when I got that check, it, your eyes kind of open up a little bit and say, okay, I get it. And we need to focus on that too.
So looking back, I remember there was a really infamous show, our episode with this like father-daughter that were admit to having sex back in the day. That being said, do you have any lines that you're like, we won't cover this topic, or that's too far, or everything's on the table, I don't care what the topic is? So
I'm in a very unique position of having my wife as my executive producer. So, and my wife, I'm not just blowing smoke. She's probably the best daytime talk producer in TV. I mean, she ran the Springer Show for years, brought my show from a nothing to what it is, being on for 15 years. So I really trust her judgment. There's times that I didn't want to do things. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And my wife's like, just do it. It's good for the show. And I did it, and it rated really well, and it worked out great. So I learned my lesson a long time ago. She's got my back. She's not going to put me in a bad position or do something that's going to put the show in a bad light. She's always protecting, it's our name. It's her name too. So she's not going to do anything that's going to really be bad for me. So whatever the topic is, I just go in. Like I said, the first couple of years, I used to fight her on things like, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. Now I just learned, just do it, get it done, and go home.
Where do you even find them? Was that like, hey, did you guys do I remember seeing in the old school daytime, are you dating someone and you have a secret that you'd never told them before? How did that episode come out or even find these?
We don't find anybody. Everybody finds us. So that's man,
you're like a magnet for crazy. I love it.
I'm giving you guys mad props because this, when I do interviews, I get the same 15 questions every time. So that's another good question. So TV has changed, right? So back in the days when I first started Springer, the producer would be cold calling people, right? Selling timeshares. Hey, would you like to buy a timeshare? They would cold call people and get leads, and they'd have to make phone calls all the time. And that's a hard way of doing it. But then, now with the internet and we run these things, on social media and the show, if you're involved in this or you need Steve's help, call this number. So we get thousands of phone calls every week. And so we don't have to find anybody. We have bookers that they listen to these voicemails and they go through them. Then the production assistant will call these stories and things that they actually contacted people. Then it gets put to the assistant producer, then the producer, then it kicks up, it just keeps going up this chain. And then my wife will have the final decision if that show comes. But it's just thousands and thousands of voicemails of people calling in that want to be on the show.
That's amazing.
All right, Steve, are lie detector tests really reliable?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you an interesting story. It was season 3 or season 4. And we had, there was a woman on who thought that her boyfriend or husband, I don't remember, but she was with this guy and she thought her guy was sleeping with his best friend was this woman. And they came on and they swore, no, we're just friends. We've known each other forever. We're just friends. And so they both come on, the friend and the husband, and they both fail for sleeping with each other. Wife goes crazy, boom, boom, boom. But the husband and the friend are so convincing. I mean, Academy Award winning performance, no, it's not true. This test is wrong. And they were so convincing that I thought maybe we got this wrong, right? Oh my God, I don't want to destroy this marriage if we're getting this wrong. So after the show was over, I said to the producer, bring the guy in and then the girl, but separate them. I want to talk to them. And I had never done that in the whole course of my show. And it's the last time I've done it. So they bring the guy in, I go, it's just you and me. Did you sleep with her? He goes, oh, hell yeah. So I'm like, all right, man, this test is accurate, so we let it go at that.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
So, to wrap, our time up, at least my last question for you is I like your approach, the way you do your show, because you're not aggressive. You have a fine line between being patient and aggressive, but also it's refreshing to have someone just to be kind of real, to talk to them. You're not an expert, and I don't say that negatively. I say that you're just kind of a real dude who's kind of been around, been exposed to a lot as a police officer, as a talk show host. You know how to kind of orchestrate a successful show. Is there any beef between you and someone like Dr. Phil? Because Dr. Phil is sort of I know what I'm doing. He's got a few more hair on the side of his head besides you, so he's got that whole ring. But how is that? Are you guys cool with each other, or have you ran into each other?
I've never met him. I am sometimes people say, oh, you're a tough Dr. Phil. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand what that means because, and to your point, I graduated high school with a 1.2 grade average, okay? Not that I was dumb, but I wasn't interested in high school at all, except for the girls I met there. That was it. That's the only reason why I went to school. I didn't go to college. You know, I went into the Marines right after high school, and then I became a policeman. Now, I read all the time. I stay up on things. I try to educate myself on many, many different things. But you're right. I am no expert. I don't have a college degree. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a beef with anybody, really, because why would I? If somebody came out and maybe tried to duplicate my show and start doing lie detector tests, and I know they tried to, John Tapper, who does the show,
Sure.
Bar Rescue.
Mm-hmm.
So the executive producer that launched my show, he, for whatever reason, he left the Springer Show. He was gone. Well, he tried to launch a new show with that guy and kind of made some disparaging remarks about me, like John Tapper's Dirty Harry, and I'm like Adam Sandler, like I'm a clown. And I said, well, I actually carried a gun, a 357 on my hip, and I locked up bad guys and put guys in prison and fought guys. And I go, John Tapper has worked in the bar industry his whole life. I'm sure he's probably never been in a life or death situation ever in his life. And, and I don't know him, but like that kind of rubbed me the wrong way when they were trying to launch him to compete against me and saying like I was like a fraud, like, what are you talking about? I was the real deal. I walked the streets of Chicago, so that's the only time that came close to the beef. And then that show never went anywhere anyway. So, there you go.
Who's laughing now, Jake Tapper?
But he's I'll say this, and nothing against him because this was the executive producer doing this, not him.
Sure.
And he's had a very, I've watched his show. It's very good. To me, it's a little repetitious, the way he does his stories with the bars. But he's had obviously a very nice long run himself on TV.
He does a good show. They kind of run in marathons now. It's fine. It's content.
That's the one thing I would fear. Well, I think it's a double-edged sword. When they run you massively like that, you're very successful, right? And I'm sure you're making a ton of money. It's like ridiculously on is it MTV or
yeah.
I used to love that show, but it airs 24 hours a day and it kind of lost its appeal for me. And I did the show because I really wanted to be on it, because when it first came out, me and my wife and kids, we'd watch, and we watched the whole marathon. But then I think shows burn out like that, right? Like you would just run them all day long.
You must not be a Kardashian fan, because that's on 24/7.
I've never watched it, not even.
You've never watched a single episode of the Kardashians?
No way, man.
It hasn't even just come on in the background at some point in your life?
Nobody in my family, so my wife obviously doesn't watch that. And my kids, I don't think, so I have a 19-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son. I don't even know if they really know I'm sure they know who the Kardashians are, but they don't follow them. And I wonder, I don't even know who their audience is. I would think a lot of women, right?
I love this right now, because this is amazing to me that your children wouldn't, they wouldn't even watch the show ever. I love this.
But I'm just not obviously they're very successful. I met Kim. She was very nice to me. But to me, I don't see the appeal of that show, but there's many shows that I like sports, and me and my wife at night. Right now we're watching on Hulu, Godfather of Harlem. With Bumpy Johnson. We're loving that. But so I'm saying that's a show that just does not interest me. I'm 58 years old. I don't want to watch a bunch of young women that are really rich and do a talk show that they make $100 million and I make a fraction of that. So maybe I'm jealous, right?
Yeah.
But it just doesn't appeal to me.
All right. My last question for you, Steve. What is the craft services table like on your show? How are you treating your people pretty good?
Okay. I'm gonna show it to you. Okay.
Ooh, all right. This is gonna be our first
one right here. Do you see that?
Yeah.
What is it?
Nothing. We don't have craft services.
Bring your own apples.
So
show up with your own food. Bring your own food to work.
So a couple of times we were out in LA, and this is when Springer Show was, huge. We did Austin Powers, and we did with the Wayne brothers, Between Brothers, they had a show. And I remember going out to Hollywood, and we'd be on set, and they have those craft services tables, right? And like bagels and everything. And, me and Jerry were there like stuffing our faces, and people like, have you ever eaten before? And I'm like, we don't get this. Like, we don't get nothing, So like the fact that they have these craft services table, man, like I just ate all day long when I was on set.
I mean, even TMZ had quite an epic snack room going on out there, man. Full kitchen full of everything you could possibly want.
That's a West Coast thing, because in Chicago we had nothing.
You know who had a really good one? Ellen's craft service area was unbelievable. Just you could get tons of food and drinks. It was awesome.
But I wonder if it's like that now, because I've noticed, when you used to go on different shows, they'd have like a basket with you, and it'd be like a coffee mug and a T-shirt and a bunch of little goodies in there. And now when you go anywhere, there's nothing anymore, man. You don't get nothing. So I
get a glass of water, maybe tap water.
Yeah, exactly. So I think these shows are cutting back a lot.
It's so funny. I used to, in 2005, 2006, I was interning at the Howard Stern show. And I remember I would go to the guests, and there's this like Steven Tyler in the green room and like huge stars. And I'd be like, hey, can I get you guys some water? And like, yeah, sure, we'd love some water. And I'd come back with paper cups of water, and they'd be like, oh, thank you. Like, it was like so sad. Like, oh, thank you. Like, it was like I was giving them porridge, And I remember the guy from 60 Minutes was doing a special on Howard Stern. And I forget, the guy who passed away, who's one of the hosts of 60 Minutes, a black guy. Anyway, I remember he was just like, hey guys, we're gonna get breakfast. What can I get you? And he's like, oh, I'll take. And orders like this huge breakfast. I'm like, all right, can you give me money? And he's like, wait, what? I was like, yeah. Like I wasn't. We don't have it. Like I'm not. We don't budget for work. And like I felt so bad, like weird, like going up to him, like, okay, cool. Hey, can you give me money? Like you don't know who I am. I'm not gonna pay for you. But yeah,
it's so great.
Just we'll end, if you want to end on this. So this is a perfect story. So the New York station PIX in New York. When I started with Jerry, like when we would travel to New York, and he would that was the station that my show airs on now, and that Jerry aired when he was on TV. And we'd go to PIX, and over the years, I met Kim Kardashian there. I met Joan Collins there, Ed Norton. Every day you'd go in, and it was like Grand Central Station back in the green rooms. Like they had 5 makeup artists and people running around left and right, and they had a table with bagels and all kind of breakfast stuff, because it was really early morning news, and they had all this food and everything. And then over the years, it was few less people. Now when you go, I'd have to mic myself. There's no makeup people. There's no other celebrities there. And now I haven't been there since COVID. Like in studio, it's been more than a couple of years now. So it's kind of sad how it's all went away, where it used to be kind of glamorous, and there were all these people, and it was the hustle and bustle. And now when you go to these TV studios, they're like the tumbleweeds are blowing through,
So true. So true. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. It's
well,
great.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us. And for anyone, make sure you check out and subscribe to Steve's YouTube page. It is crushing it. He's got over 1 million subscribers on there. Crazy popular channel. It highlights a lot of the clips from his show he puts up on there. You can head on over to stevewilkos.com as well, where you can catch his show. But follow him on Facebook, because he's just destroying that as well. I mean, be a part of the 147 million views year to date coming in on there. Steve, you're crazy successful. It's been really fun to hear your life and how it unfolded and how it became to where it is today. We wish you so much more success, and thank you for stopping by our show.
Well, and I just want to say it was a great interview. It's refreshing to talk about things that you haven't said 1,000 times before. So thank you guys.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother. I like him.
I liked him a lot, dude. He was fun.
He's really, just, you know what it is? He's the type of guy who I would love to have a drink with. Like, I felt like we were at a bar having a drink with him, and he's just like shooting the shit.
I feel like after that interview, we might get invited to go have a drink with him, because I think he liked us.
No, he liked us, but no, he was a cool guy, fun guy, and I just like again, we use this word a lot. We use this word to describe our podcast, but I appreciate how he humanized his career, his job, what he does for a living, you know?
Yeah.
And honestly, if you're not a Steve Wilkos viewer, I think after this interview, maybe you want to give it a shot because he's just a likable guy. Like, I get it. I get why you give a guy like that a show. He's just a likable, normal, real dude.
I love the story about shaving his head was basically launching his career. I don't know, for some reason it's so funny. You would never equate it to that. Like, you would think, oh, his personality, he took someone down and so everyone started like him. No, he shaved his head and fan mail poured in. Like, that to me is so funny. But I don't know.
You know what I would say? I appreciate him just kind of being real about the Drew Barrymore show where, like, yeah, she's a very nice person. Yes, she gets big stars on her show. However, I'm beating her in the ratings. I mean, this is, you know, I appreciate him just kind of being kind of blunt about it, where a lot of people would kind of play the game and kind of dance around it. And I wasn't trying to, you know, I wasn't trying to clickbait him. I wasn't trying to set him up for, but he was the one like, hey, listen, yeah, she's a successful person, but at the end of the day, my ratings are winning. And I love his perspective where everyone tries to do these celebrity talk shows and they just repeat themselves. So he's like, listen, you guys do that. I'm going to do my own thing, which he's doing true crime right now in his show, which is a huge genre. People love that. And if you love true crime, we have a podcast on Her Dad called Innocent Till Tipsy, where they've been covering the Johnny Depp story in detail. It's a really good podcast if you love that stuff. But I don't know. He's just a good dude. But if you want to see the video of this portion of this podcast, we have a YouTube page where we have celebrity videos. We have great content on there. We have clips that we kind of put out that you can't find anywhere else. Make sure you leave us a review. Best thing to do.
Yes, please leave us the reviews, guys. We appreciate it. We are climbing up the charts. We were flying up the charts this week, but it is all thanks to you guys and for actually taking the time, leaving a review, because that's really kind of what helps the algorithm in Apple, and that is what they reward you. They send you up the charts based on obviously downloads, but really reviews. It's huge for us. Huge. So if you can take 2 seconds out of your day to go just say hi guys and then leave that 5-star, we appreciate it mucho. Make sure you follow Adam on all his social media platforms at the Adam Glyn, and you can find me at Dax Holt across everything except for TikTok because some a-hole took Dax Holt. So I'm Dax_Holt on there. But other than that, thank you guys. Have a great one. We will see you next time.
What's up, guys? If you like that video, there's plenty more where that came from.
Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell so we can just feed you all the goodness daily.
Hurry up. Come on, let's go.